Hi there, Warren here, and welcome back to Coffee One Roast at a Time. So, the Gene Café app does something I really appreciate. It gives me access to my roast data. Not every coffee roaster app does that in a way that feels useful. But with the Gene Café CBR-301, I can export a JSON file from a roast, and that file contains a lot of useful data. The information it can hold is, like, for example, the temperature the app recorded, the time through the roast, fan behaviour milestones, roast settings. And if I've entered them, things like weight and weight loss. Now, the app records the data, but it doesn't really explain the data. And that's where this little beta tool comes in. I've been working on a small Gene Café JSON roast report tool for the Coffee One Roast at a Time project. It's not a replacement for the Gene Café app. It doesn't control the roaster. It is not official Gene Café guidance. And it definitely does not turn the CBR-301 into a precision profiling machine. What it does is much simpler. You upload a Gene Café JSON export, and the tool turns that file into a basic roast report. It shows the reported temperature curve. It finds key milestones, like when the roast reached 200 or 230 or 245 and 250 degrees Celsius, or the Fahrenheit equivalents if your file uses Fahrenheit. It looks for fan changes, especially the move from fan speed 2 to fan speed 3. If weight data is available, it shows weight loss. If crack markers are present in the file, it shows those too, but very carefully. Not as a confirmed first crack, not as second crack, just as user or app crack markers. And then it gives some plain English learning notes about what the roast appears to show. That phrase does matter. Appears to show, not proves, not guarantees, not predicts, just appears to show. Because this is still coffee roasting, and coffee roasting is not that tidy. The temperature shown in the report is the temperature reported by the Gene Café app system. It's not bean temperature. That's a really important caveat. But even with that caveat, I've found the data useful. Not because it tells me everything, but because it gives me something to compare. For example, I can see whether one roast moved through the early temperature milestones faster than the other. I can see whether a warm start behaved differently from a cold start. I can see when the fan changed speed. I can compare the curve with the final weight loss. And over time, these reports have helped me evolve how I think about roasting on this machine. That's been especially useful after the heater issues and the repair work I've been documenting on the channel. One of the big lessons from this whole project is that the Gene Café is not just one simple fixed thing. Machine state matters. Start temperature matters. Possibly local voltage and heater versions matter. Airflow probably matters. And individual machines may have their own personalities, as I'm calling it. So part of the long-term idea is this. Could we build a better picture of how these machines behave, not by guessing, but by looking at the real roast data? That's where this tool might become useful to more than just me. Right now, this is a beta roast report, but over time, I hope it can help support the bigger rangefinder idea, something that might eventually help a Gene Café user answer, I have this coffee, this batch size, and this machine. Where's a sensible place to start? Not as a perfect prediction though, just as a better starting range. And the only way that becomes useful is with data. Good data, real roasts, different machines, different users, different coffees, different start states. So I've added an optional contribution step. After the report is generated, you can choose whether to contribute the anonymized roast data extracted from the JSON. That's a completely optional. Uploading a JSON for analysis does not mean you have donated it. The raw JSON file is not kept. Photos, embedded image data, device identifiers and personal details are not stored. The idea is simply to keep useful roast behavior fields, things like timings, temperatures, batch size, weight loss if available, fan events and crack markers where they exist. And even then, contributed data starts as provisional because this is a learning project, not a finished scientific data set. Let me show what it looks like. This is the Gene Café JSON roast reporting beta page. The wording here is deliberately cautious. Upload a Gene Café roast JSON and get a simple learning report. Not a score, not a judgment, not a magic answer, a report. Once the file is uploaded, the tool reads the roast data and generates the report. Here you can see the reported temperature over time. Again, this is not bean temperature, it is the app reported temperature, but it is still useful for comparison. The markers show the key milestones. Here is 200 degrees Celsius, here is 230, here is 245, here is 250. If the file is in Fahrenheit, the report displays the Fahrenheit equivalent, while still normalizing the data internally, so comparisons stay consistent. And here are fan events where they were detected. Below that, there is an ET30 chart. ET30 is just a simple 30-second temperature change indicator. It helps show whether the reported machine temperature is rising quickly, slowing, or flattening out. It is not a professional rate of rise curve, and it should not be treated as a precise development measure, but as a learning aid. I think it is useful. The extracted data section is important too. This lets you check what the tool actually read from the file. Roast name, coffee name, input weight, output weight, weight loss, target temperature, start temperature, total log time, milestones, fan timing, crack markers if present. This matters because if the extraction is wrong, the interpretation will be wrong. So the report doesn't hide the numbers. It shows them first, then it gives learning notes. The learning notes are deliberately written in cautious language. This roast appears cold. This roast appears fast through some milestones. This may suggest a more energetic machine state. This may reflect coffee-specific behavior. This is a clue, not a judgment. This is the tone I want for this project. The report is trying to help the user think, not tell them what to believe. And then, where weight loss is available, it gives a gentle interpretation. If the roast landed lighter than the reference range, it might suggest a lighter cup. If the cup tastes thin, maybe a little more time would help. If the cup tastes good, then the roast is useful. That last point matters. The cup still decides. The report is still there to help us understand the roast. It is not there to overrule taste. There's also a print or save as PDF option that lets you keep the report as a record. This is still beta, so I will definitely keep your own copies if the report matters to you. I'm not promising that old reports or references will always be available as the plugin changes. This is a small project tool, not a commercial project. And that, honestly, is important. At the end, there is an optional contribution step. If the report was useful, and if you want to support the project, you can contribute the anonymized even, extracted roast data. If not, just keep the analysis private. That's completely fine. The goal here is not to harvest people's data. The goal is to see whether shared Gene Café roast data can help us understand this machine better over time. Because I think there is something interesting here. The official Gene Café app gives access to the data. That's a good thing. I genuinely appreciate that. What I'm trying to build around it is a reporting and learning layer. A way to say, what's happened in this roast? How fast did it move? When did the fan intervene? Was this cold or warm? Did the weight loss match what I expected? And what might I try next? That feels very aligned with the whole coffee at one roast at a time project. One roast, one record, one learning step, no drama, no fake precision, no pretending that we know more than we do. So if you use the Gene Café CBR-301 and you're comfortable exporting a JSON file, I would really appreciate a few people trying this. Not because it's finished, because it's definitely not, but because this is exactly the kind of thing that only becomes useful when real users try it with real roasts. And I genuinely hope people find it useful. That's the whole point. If it helped you understand your roast a little better, even just by giving you a clearer record, then it's already doing something worthwhile. But I also know it will not be perfect. So please leave comments on this video. If the report misread your file, tell me. If the wording feels too confident, tell me. If the graph is confusing, tell me. If something breaks, definitely tell me. And if it works well for you, I would love to hear that too. I'll try to be responsive in the comments, especially while this is a beta. The link is in the description. For now, I would treat it as a beta tool. Use it carefully, keep your own JSON files, save any reports you want to keep, and as always, use a report alongside weight loss, brewing and taste, because the data matters, but the cup still has the final word. Thanks for watching, and if you do try it, please let me know in the comments how it behaves with your Gene Café roasts.